So, welcome back everybody to our last session of the day for the People's Transformathon. Hello, my name is Helen Bevan and I'm part of the Horizons team from NHS England that is organising the People's Transformathon. So just to say that we're shortly going to go into our very last session on volunteering and social action. But what I thought we'd do, before we do that, some of you, I just looked at who's taking part, and some of you have actually been with us for 8 hours, nearly, which is really amazing. So what I thought we'd do is, let's just see how everybody's feeling right now. So, if you look on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see. Can you see a little pencil towards the top? It's underneath Quick Start. If you press on that pencil, okay, and then go down about 4 boxes, and there's another pen tool. And if you click on the right-hand side, that is like a little sideways V. It says pen tool or pencil tool. So click on pen tool, okay, and then what I'd like you to do is tell me how you're feeling. So how are you feeling? Wow, this is so amazing. I just want to get out there now and go get co-producing. Or I'm cautiously hopeful that things can change. Or I remain positive. Let's see how I can make this work. Or I remain unconvinced or sceptical. So get your pen and tell us how you're feeling. Oh, continue. Continue. Coventry. Come. Oh. Wow. Continue. Okay, quite. Continue. Cod mind the gap. Very good. Very good. You know, well, if anybody wants to actually write some things, okay, if you go back to where that pen was, and you go down to, there's some letters there. So on the white spaces, pick a space and write how you're feeling. So find a white space, or pick a different colour. Okay, pick a different colour, so you can pick. So I'll pick a yellow one here. So let's see how everyone's feeling.
It finally worked.
Ready to rock! Fantastic. This has gone so fast. That's perfect. So great. So, anyway, what I think we'll do is at this point, Joe, who is our technical support person, who is our technical supremo, who is making this happen. I think what we better do at this point, Joe, is we better ban all the pens, because otherwise we'll be writing for the next hour. But hopefully, people are feeling good. There's lots of hearts. We're going to continue minding the gap, and we're ready to rock. So let's now go into our session from colleagues at Salisbury NHS Foundation Trust, who are going to talk about volunteering and social action as key enablers. And you know how I'm really very happy to introduce this section or this last input into the People's Transformathon. And I think actually that volunteering and social action is one of the areas where there is the most potential. And I speak as somebody who volunteers. I do my volunteering for the British Red Cross, and I'm the chair of the British Red Cross Innovation Board. And I also do my volunteering as part of my job working for NHS England within the volunteering policy. And I hope that many of you who are on the taking part in People's Transformathon now, who are health and care professionals, that you're part of an organisation that's also got a volunteering policy, and you do that as well. So what we're going to hear now is from the team at Salisbury NHS Foundation Trust, and they are doing really amazing work with volunteering. And actually, this is a programme that we're going to hear about now, won the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service in 2016, and it's the Engage programme, where volunteers work to enhance the psychological wellbeing of older adults in hospital. So what we're going to hear from staff, volunteers and patients, and we're particularly going to focus on the impact of the programme, and I think this is a really wonderful and inspiring session for the very last formal input for the People's Transformathon. So, team from Salisbury, can you hear me?
Hello, yes we can.
Yay, great. And can you see the screen, or do you want me to move it for you?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sorry, we haven't been successful in joining you via the computer, so if you could act as our moving on our slides, that would be wonderful, thank you. So we'll just give you a prompt when we're ready, but thank you.
Okay, that's great. Really happy to do this. So we're now on slide number 1. That's the title slide, volunteering and social action.
That's right. That's lovely. So thank you. I mean, we're really excited to be talking to you today from the Salisbury Hospital. So thanks for inviting us to join. We're really looking forward to sharing with you all about our wonderful Engage programme at Salisbury Hospital, which we are all of us really proud of. Which, as you can see from the slide, is all about volunteers working to enhance the psychological wellbeing of our older adults at Salisbury Hospital, and we provide social interaction and psychological support for our special older adults. So before, we had hoped to introduce you physically to everyone on the screen, but if I just run through who we've got here with me today. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Sarah Homer. I've got the job of Engage Coordinator, overseeing the programme day to day. With me is Mike Pointer, one of our long-standing and very dedicated volunteers who's been with us almost from day one, really. He's going to talk to us about how Engage works on a day-to-day basis. We've got Richard Bullard with us, who's another dedicated, long-serving volunteer. He's going to talk to us about how we support patients and what makes volunteers special. We've got Lloyd Baggs, who's a healthcare support worker from our dedicated spinal unit, and he's going to share with us how he sees that engaged volunteers are able to support the busy ward staff. We have Peter with us as well, who's going to help us manage our time and keep us in order. So welcome and thank you for joining us. So if you could move on to the second slide, please, which is for me to talk about the development of Engage. So Engage came about as our innovative team, really, in clinical psychology. We're increasingly noticing that our older adults in hospital were suffering with elevated levels of anxiety, low mood, and we're often seeing elevated levels of depression as well amongst our adults at Salisbury Hospital. I think we all agree that hospital admission for anybody is a distressing and difficult time, but it's often particularly distressing for older adults who are used to an established lifestyle and a routine. They've got commitments such as careers, being grandparents, and the sudden change for them in their routine and unexpected admission to hospital can be particularly problematic. We found also that hospital can feel lonely and isolating, and of course research backs this up. Patients are often bored and frustrated, and some of our patients don't have many visitors either, so all these things confound for patients feeling really low. We looked at research which basically reinforced these observations that we were finding. Over 2/3 of our patients on the hospital wards here are aged 65 and over, and their levels of anxiety and depression in this age group is significantly higher than any other age group. And this, of course, is an increasing problem because our ageing population means that this is an ever-growing problem that needs addressing. And another factor in this as well is patients with dementia and sort of increasing levels of dementia. We were finding that older adults generally were needing a lot much more support. So I haven't touched on another important factor here actually, which is the sense of a loss of identity coming into hospital, with patients sort of being felt to be just bed numbers sometimes, and there's a tendency to lose self-confidence and self-esteem, and obviously with a lack of stimulation and things to keep them occupied in the day, there's a risk of cognitive decline. So our department here, we're really concerned about this and wanted to combat these things and give their patients the best possible chance to engage in their recovery and rehabilitation. And our team here at Salisbury are particularly innovative. And our consultant clinical psychologist, Nigel North, was receiving letters from volunteers, lots of them, sort of asking for voluntary work. So he thought about this and thought we could use these amazing volunteers to run a pilot study across the hospital just to see how we could improve the psychological needs of our older adults. So this was approved by our board here at Salisbury. We started off with about 6 or 7 volunteers going across 2 of our hospital wards, and they literally just spent time listening, talking to patients, providing them with companionship and support, games and activities, and just all round generally cheering our patients up. And this was really fed back from the patients. But the data that we collected as part of this research trial actually showed really significant results in this as well. It wasn't just really flattering patient feedback. There were hard results here. So what we found was there was a significant reduction in levels of anxiety in our patients that were being seen. There was also a significant reduction in depression as well. And these things actually improved more and more with greater frequent numbers of visits. So this was really satisfying for us that we were, really making a difference. But perhaps surprisingly, what we didn't expect to see was that our results showed that all of these things combined contributed to patients having better engagement in their recovery and rehabilitation, which actually resulted in reduced lengths of stays as well, which is a great added bonus to that. So we know Engage works. We've got proven results here. It's an established program. Now we go across all the wards across the hospital. We're funded by the Stars Appeal, Amazing Stars Appeal, who fully fund us, and we're able now to have about 50 volunteers on our books. There's about 15 of those who are regular weekly volunteers. But we've also recently been awarded this year with recognition by the Queen's Voluntary Service Award, which is given out to less than 200 voluntary groups each year, and recognises our impact across the hospital, but also the innovation of our clinical psychology team, which has forged forward for this. So our priority really now is to expand our volunteer base to meet an ever-increasing need, really, and facilitate greater number of visits on the wards if we can. So thank you for listening to that. It's a lot of speech. I'm going to hand you over now to our lovely volunteer, Mike Pointer, who's going to talk to you about how Engage works day to day.
Hi, this is Mike speaking. Can you move the slide on to my first one, please? I think the important thing to start with is the fact that we have an Engage coordinator. This means that as a team of volunteers, we're not isolated. We don't come in when we want to go onto the wards and have to work out what to do. We have a coordinator who keeps the whole thing together, makes it run smoothly. It's somebody to help us, give us advice. And Sarah, our coordinator, is actually funded by the hospital charity, which we're very grateful for, because it does mean that we have this focal point. We have our own office, we have our own safe space, And when I come in on Tuesday morning, I know that I'm going to go onto Farley Ward, which is our stroke unit, and I'm going to see some patients. Now, how do we know which patients we're going to see? Well, we can be asked to visit some patients. It may be one or other of the clinical psychologists here has been visiting a patient and feels that there's no more professional help that they need to provide to the patient, but they would like to monitor the situation. And so we might take on that role and go and see specific patients as asked by the clinical psychologists. Equally, there may be people on the wards, staff on the wards, from the sister downwards, who may call us and ask for an engaged volunteer to go and visit specific patients. We do make notes of all the patients. We keep a log of all the patients we see, and so we carry a file with us. And I also carry, when I go onto the wards, a number of things which might be useful for patients. We keep a supply of puzzles, word searches, particularly useful because patients seem to like them, Sudokus for more serious study or crosswords. We take some of those with us, and we have a number of other things that we can come back to the office and get. Typically, we spend 2 to 2.5 hours each morning and each afternoon on the ward. I personally do Tuesday morning and Thursday morning. Our wards have restricted times when they prefer us not to be there, and we try to honour those times, especially over lunchtime. The first thing we would do when we go onto the ward is make sure that the ward staff know that we're there. I've been visiting Farley Ward now for 5 years, and so I don't really have to do that. They know who I am, and I know who they are, and I literally just get on with the job. But very often, members of staff will approach me when I enter the ward and ask me to go and visit particular patients because they have particular needs. And so we have a very good working relationship with the staff on the wards, and that even includes the doctors who have in the past asked me to go and visit specific patients. Our ward is divided into 4 bays. Obviously, they're not mixed, 2 ladies, 2 men. And I must admit that I usually start with the ladies' bays because, well, I like talking to ladies. And top priority is to visit the patients we've been asked to go and see. Some days we're not asked to see anybody specifically, so I would just go into a bay and circulate round from bed to bed. Typically in a morning session, I might see anything between, my record is to spend the whole morning with 1 patient, but typically 8 to 10 patients, sometimes less, rarely more. It just depends on the needs of the patient, how long they want us to stay with them. And the key thing about what we do is that we don't watch the clock. We don't have a limited time. So if a patient really does want to talk, we will stay and listen. And I think that's shown by an example some time ago now. I happened to be in a ward, a men's ward, when one of the men was being discharged that day. And because we're in Salisbury, we have a lot of military people live in the area. And this man was a military man, and so were several others in the ward. And he said to me on that morning he was going home, "Mike," he said, "you were the only person in this ward who actually had time for us." And that's a key to what we do. We have time. Sometimes when I approach a patient, they maybe don't really want to talk, and it's polite to move away and let them snooze or let them just sit and watch the world go by. Sometimes they don't really know whether they want to talk, and I have a number of ways of opening up a conversation, and I find that somebody who didn't really want to talk actually does want to talk. A good example of that is men. We men perhaps are not quite so chatty as ladies, I don't know, but some men do like to get things straight in their mind. And I've found several times that men like to give you their medical history. They'll tell you how they got to hospital. They'll even tell you what speed the ambulance went at, because they want to get it all straight in their mind. And I'm very happy to sit and listen to that. And then we kind of open a drawer and we put it away and we talk about other things. Not all men are like that, but I know I would be, and so I can empathise. I should say that I spent 4 very happy days in this hospital 5 years ago, and so I do have experience of what it's like lying on a bed with tubes and wires going into me. Because I work in a stroke unit, some patients don't find communication easy. They've had a stroke and it's affected their speech, and I work with these speech therapists on the ward, and sometimes visit patients who are asked to do specific exercises. And it really gives me quite a thrill to be able to see a patient who perhaps has recently had a stroke and is finding speech very difficult, to have, albeit a very slow conversation, sometimes using a printed alphabet card to help with getting some words and some communication going. And then to go back a couple of days later and find that this patient is now speaking a bit more, and maybe a few days later they're able to hold a rational conversation. And that gives me a thrill, as well as knowing that I'm helping the patient. They're obviously happy that their speech is being improved. We have to respect the patients. We also have to remember that the patients are in hospital because they're ill. And some patients just don't want to talk. Some want to sleep all the time, and because of we're on the ward in the morning, some patients are being washed, bathed, sent for tests, they disappear. And that's why we don't get to speak to all 28 patients in the ward every week. It just can't happen. It's not practical. So we do the best we can. The nature of strokes is such that most of the patients in the stroke unit are, in fact, over 65. And although we don't walk up to a patient and say, "How old are you?" and if they're under 65, we walk away, we do tend towards talking to the elderly. However, strokes can hit younger folk too, and it is often helpful to talk to them. The other thing I'm finding more now is that we're being a little bit more relaxed here about visiting hours. And if somebody is seriously ill, you'll often find a loved one, husband, wife, son, daughter, sitting by the bedside, and it's helpful sometimes to talk to them because they're just as bored, especially if their loved one is asleep or is really not very well. And it's just helpful to talk to them and encourage them that somebody is caring, somebody really does want to help. I must admit that most of the time I spend listening to patients. Very often, if you're asked what does Engage do, we say we talk to patients. Well, actually, we don't. We spend more time listening than talking. It's just that we try to stimulate the conversation. And that's really so important. Some patients have a bit of an axe to grind. Why have I had to wait so long for the test results? I don't really know what's the matter with me. That's the sort of situation we can deal with. But to an elderly person, maybe a person who's lost a loved one and feels very lonely, to have somebody who's prepared to listen to them, prepared to encourage them, can be a real help. And you can see it in their faces, and you feel it in the handshake they give you when you leave the patient. Very often men will shake you by the hand because they've obviously enjoyed the experience that somebody has bothered to come and see them. Move on to the next slide now. I guess I've talked some of these things. One of the things it can be useful to do when you're talking to patients is to have something neutral to talk about. And I often pick holidays because most people have been on holiday. I have to admit that I have met one or two folk who have worked in farming here in Salisbury, and they have never had a holiday because their life has been their farm. But most people have been on holiday, and that's a pretty neutral thing to talk about. You can talk about their latest cruise, their latest holiday, or the best holiday they had. And you find too that elderly patients, their short-term memory is perhaps a little bit impaired, but their long-term memory can obviously be razor sharp. And we've had many an interesting discussion to talk to patients about their wartime experiences. I remember talking to a guy a couple of years ago who worked at an RAF base near to Salisbury, repairing Spitfires. And boy, could he talk, but it was fascinating because it was something I knew nothing about in this area, but it was just a joy to hear him. And he was able to put himself outside the hospital because obviously as he was pretty seriously ill. As he was talking, I could see that he was visualizing in his mind the comrades he used to work with, the job he used to do, and the fun it used to give him. So although it was only, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour that we were talking, it was an opportunity to divert him from the routine that we impose upon patients here in hospital. We ask patients to wake up when they don't want to wake up, go to sleep when they don't want to go to sleep. We push pills in, we take blood out of them, and it's all alien to their usual life routine. In fact, if you ask any patient what they'd like most of all, they always say they want to go home, and no matter how ill they are. The other thing you learn very quickly is that no two patients are the same. Patients react to us coming in a different way. Patients respond to what we talk about in a different way. Patients respond to their illness in a different way. And it's just great fun working with the team here and learning each, thinking on your feet, and learning each time how to deal with specific patients. Well, that's roughly how Engage works. It may sound rather complicated. It may sound a little bit structured. Actually, it's pretty free. We think on our feet and we react in the best way we can to specific patients. But I'm going to hand over now to Lloyd, who is going to talk from the other side as well, because he's on the nursing side of the hospital, and he's going to talk about how he sees Engage from his side.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Lloyd Baggs. I work on Salisbury Spinal Unit, and I'm going to talk to you about the patient's point of view and also the point of view from the staff. So the point of view from the patient is that the Engage team are supporting them throughout their day-to-day activities. This is done by talking with the patient. This is talking about how the patients on the spinal unit have ended up there. So how they've accumulated their injuries, whether it's through something traumatic or through surgery. The patients find it very helpful to talk about this because sometimes the staff are not able to talk about, well, they're not able to relate to the patient from an external point of view. The type of patients that come onto the spinal unit are young patients, old patients. They come from a lot of different backgrounds. So our current youngest patient is 18 years old, so this is a little bit different to other wards that the Engage team are used to going on to. Our patients, when they arrive to us, usually they're put on bed rest for a period of 12 weeks. As you can imagine, this is very boring for the patient if they're not having many visitors. They're stuck on the bed inside for 3 months, essentially. So it's very helpful for them to have someone to come up onto the ward and speak to them. There's a lot of our patients that don't have much family or visitors that are able to see them. This is because our catch area is all the way from Cornwall to Gloucestershire. So it can take some of their relatives 3 or 4 hours to come in to see them. So that's why they're not able to visit them every single day. Now, from the staff's point of view, we feel that the Engage staff are very helpful to us. We can also talk to them about our own problems. They're very, very helpful. We feel that they complete the patient experience. They fill in the gaps that we're not able to achieve. Whether this is because we're getting called away, answering buzzers on time, or whether we're in with another patient. We think that the Engage staff, they are supporting us also by giving us the feedback from each patient. They can often see things that we can't. This is by picking up when patients are anxious about things or when there's a patient who's having a difficult time on the ward. I feel that the Engage team, they are an essential part of the multidisciplinary team. They're always handing over to us, to the psychology, and they're very helpful for the patients. I have in front of me some feedback from other patients from different wards. So one says, one patient from Durrington ward reported that she really appreciated a visit and a smile from Engage, and said that the visit had actually brightened up her day. One of the patients from Pitton ward actually donated £5 to the Stars Appeal. This is her way of thanking the Engage for visiting her and taking magazines for her to look at. She said, "What a fantastic job Engage are doing." Another patient from Pitton ward, she had been hospitalised for 3 months, and Engage had been asking from the ward to see him. The Engage volunteers visited frequently and helped solve puzzles with him. The ward reported that this had really cheered him up and had been a great distraction for him whilst he was waiting in hospital for decisions about his treatment to be finalised. A former patient telephoned the psychology department this autumn to congratulate Engage on receiving the Queen's Award. He said that when he was a patient at Salisbury Hospital, he was really grateful for the visit from Engage volunteers. So I'm going to hand over now to Richard. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. Richard here. Perhaps it's good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Can you hear me okay? Can you move on to the slide headed, "Why are Engage volunteers special?" Rather like Mike, I've gone through some of similar experiences that he has, but I always feel that Engage volunteers are not really special. They're just ordinary people. We just come in and we do get lots of training to support us in what we do, but generally we're just ordinary folk, really. I was an engineer. I had an extended time in hospital undergoing treatment, so I felt, probably like a lot of volunteers, that I ought to give something back. I spent my time in 3 wards: a cardiac ward, the burns unit, and the ward, Pembroke ward, which deals with cancer patients. So I actually get a fairly wide range of ages, not mostly older people, but certainly, particularly in burns, unsurprisingly, there are a number of quite young people. For example, 3 of the patients I've seen have suffered amputations as a result of electrocution on a railway line, which was quite difficult. Anyway, why are we special? Well, we've already mentioned the training that we receive. We're also a very supportive team. You can come back into the office after you've spent time on the ward, and you get lots of support from your colleagues. We all want to know how your morning was, how did you get on, and I think that's a very powerful tool. On occasions, though, you can be out on the ward and you can have some quite difficult patients, understandably so. I mean, one's not complaining about that. It's just that sometimes, if you're really thinking about what it is you're doing, when you get a negative kind of reaction, you sort of question yourself. So one of the ways that I know Engage volunteers deal with that is to go and see a chatty patient, and you feel much better after that. But at least I can recall on a number of occasions where I felt out of my depth somewhat. This was a patient I can think of in particular that had had a leg amputated, was in a very, very bad place. And the really positive thing and special thing for us volunteers, Engage volunteers, is being able to come back to the clinical psychology team and talking to a clinician and getting support and advice from them. And I think that's one way that we're perhaps a little unique in having that. I've found as well that I get closer and closer involved with the staff on the ward. I mean, Mike earlier mentioned that we report to the nurse in charge and so on. Well, I kind of think it's in the wards that I go to where people are fairly seriously ill, that engagement with the staff is crucial. And on one ward in particular, the cardiac ward, I get invited into the whiteboard meeting first thing in the morning. I do 2 shifts a week, Wednesday morning and on Friday morning. And that 20 minutes or so running through all the patients on the ward, talking to the staff about those patients is invaluable. And that's a very privileged place to be. It's been a big surprise to me as an old engineer to actually find that the staff here at the hospital are so positive about what we do and really are quite happy with the work that we do and do ask us to help out specific patients. I think that we're very, very lucky in that as a volunteer, we can chat with a patient and just that simple human contact, you can see how the well-being of that patient is visibly improved. Many times you can see their eyes light up, they start to chat, they don't want you to go, and really it's such a rewarding experience as an engaged volunteer. And I know that many of my colleagues feel the same way. So I think now what we're going to do is, I've finished now, we're going to move on and have a general chat. No, we're not. I've got that wrong.
Sorry, Richard, we're not. We're running out of time, actually. I think you've given a very eloquent statement there of how you feel, and it's been great. But I think what we're going to do is just wrap things up and summarise now to sort of say you've heard about Engage from different perspectives from volunteers and staff, and you've also heard some patient feedback to see how we're working together so effectively to enhance patient care, and as Lloyd rightly put it, sort of working as a multidisciplinary team to support our patients. Our primary aim is to support psychological needs of older adults in Salisbury Hospital, as we've explained, but hopefully we've been able to convey through each of us that there are many wider benefits to Engage than that. There's sort of personal growth for most of us, as Rich has just been explaining, and also in terms of sort of giving to a voluntary cause in this way, you're often sort of getting something back, and there really is a special sort of feeling within Engage of a shared sense of enjoyment in the programme and being part of that, which is really sort of only sustainable by the volunteers themselves. And in terms of this being a good example of co-production, we've been doing this, as Mike pointed out, for over 5 years now, but we just didn't know it was called co-production until recently. So we hope you've enjoyed listening to us, and we sort of open up for any questions now.
Hi, Sarah and team. That was really fantastic, and I just think what a lovely, practical, people-focused, wonderful initiative to end our People's Transformathon on. But I want to ask you, you said that you've been able to you've done this for 5 years. It's really interesting. If you actually look at hospitals generally around the experience of volunteering, it's very mixed. There's some places that are able to create, really sustainable volunteering strategies with great outcomes like you have, and other places have really struggled. So what do you think are the factors that have enabled you to create something so sustainable? Okay, what's the kind of magic that's made you been able to do this so sustainably?
Mike can answer that for you, but if I could just start that by just saying I think the innovative sort of clinical psychology team here really has got it off the ground in the first place, and we're constantly trying to think of ways to push forward. But I'll let Mike lead on that one.
I think one of the things about Salisbury, that the hospital is situated literally just outside of the city, and the city believes in the hospital. We have a hospital charity, the Stars Appeal. If we ask for something through appeal, the whole city responds, and that's because they know about the hospitals. Consequently, if we ask for volunteers, people know what the hospital is. They know what it's about. It's not a big hospital, but it's not a little hospital either. It's 500-600 beds. And many people in the city have been to the hospital, inpatients or outpatients. So people know about it. And I think that helps enormously when you put out a plea for volunteers. Richard?
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Mike. I mean, I think you've hinted at it, that this hospital is a community hospital, really engaged, I'm sorry to use that word again, with the local community. And one of the ways that we get new volunteers is that we run recruitment days. And those recruitment days, the local radio services support us in that. They advertise them and so on. And they'll come in before that event and they'll interview some of the engaged volunteers. And that sort of raises the profile considerably, so that when we have these recruitment days, we usually get a very good response and quite a good pickup of people that really want to go the next step and become a volunteer.
The other thing that we have is fairly close links with local universities and also with local schools. Local universities, Portsmouth, Southampton, run psychology courses, and some of the students like to come here on a Wednesday and volunteer morning and afternoon to get some practical experience and to work out whether clinical psychology is something they want to pursue. And they're able to be trained and they're able to go on the wards on their own or in pairs and do the job that we do. We also have youngsters from the local school, 2 or 3 of the local schools who have been here just to get some kind of work experience. They're not allowed to go on the wards on their own, but they can come round with established volunteers and, again, see whether psychology or medicine is something that they want to get interested in. And we would encourage that because it opens the hospital out to the community and it gets more people into the hospital.
That's like wonderful answers there. And I'm going to give Carol the stage because she knows you quite well. And when we were putting together the programme for the Transformathon, the Engage team were almost the kind of first idea that she came up with. So Carol, why were you so keen? What's so special about Engage?
Hi, I think it's really important that when you see what's happening at Salisbury, you can see how they really engage the community. I'm just going to turn my sound down because it's echoing. But it's about the fact that it's a small hospital, but actually its tentacles go wider than that, and people want to work for the hospital. And so Engage pulls in people from a whole range of diverse backgrounds to support patients on the ward, and people really care and do the job because they absolutely care about it. They want to. They just really want to help. They have real pride in the hospital, and they actually want to support everybody to do a good job and deliver really excellent care. So I think that's why I wanted to include Engage on the programme, because it is a great example. It's a very simple example, but it could be rolled out everywhere, that we actually start talking and also listening to our patients to understand what they're doing and how you can co-produce services. And actually, you don't even need to know that you're doing co-production. It should happen just naturally. I think that's really important.
Thanks for that. We're just about running out of time now. If anybody's got any other questions or comments, can you pop them in the chat box? But just to say, thank you so much for the team from Salisbury. That was it was really special and wonderful. And I just think, when I think about my own parents and how I'd want things for them to be for them in hospital, and the kind of psychological comfort that schemes like Engage offer. really wonderful. So thank you very much. Oh my goodness, yeah. Oh my goodness, we're coming to the end. Wow, 7.5 hours of content, absolutely amazing. So we've just got one more thing to do now, which is to create a worthwhile and fitting end to the Transformathon. So what we thought was, rather than because some of you have been with us since 12 noon. Absolutely amazing. So we thought, rather than have some kind of, long end, we do something interesting and focused to finish things off. So I've set a challenge to myself and Carol and Alison, and what I've asked all three of us to do is to come up with one word that for you kind of epitomises or summarises this experience of the People's Transformathon. And then what I thought we'd do to end with is that we'd ask everybody, the stalwarts who are still with us, okay, the 36 people that have hung on till the end, to also come up with a word. And you can either, when we get to that stage, you can either draw it on the screen, or you can write it in the chat box, or you can tweet it. So you've got 3 different media for your words, if that's okay. So the first person I am going to ask to come up with, to tell us about their word, is Carol. And the word that Carol chose is inspirational. So Carol, why did you choose this word to epitomise, the content of the People's Transformathon?
Thanks, Helen. I just chose inspirational because I think today has really been inspirational.
I was sat here and I haven't even realised what the time is. I haven't even realised that I haven't eaten, because every single session has just given a different element about co-production. People have been in the chat box, people have been saying, here's some great resources, can you put them on the site, can I connect with this person, can I connect with this person? So it's been fantastic just sitting here and being a conduit for all this really fantastic co-production work, and be part of an event where people have actually sat there and listened to an event this length of time. Just blows me away. I just find it really emotional.
Yeah.
That's me.
And part of my problem is I love practice, but I like a bit of theory as well. So given that I set the task, I'm allowed. So my word that I chose was diversity, but I mean diversity in a new way. And just listening to today, it really made me think about co-production and the power of diversity. But it also made me think about this Kellogg research. And often when we talk about diversity, it's like, well, isn't it great when we get lots of diverse people together? The fact that diverse groups of people consistently make better decisions than groups of experts. But it goes way beyond, well, isn't it great that you've got this different viewpoint? Isn't it great that we've got the patient viewpoint or the family viewpoint? And that's important. But actually, what the research tells us is that diverse groups, when we co-produce in a diverse way, when we've got everyone included, actually, the reason that diverse groups outperform expert groups isn't because, we've got all these new ideas in, but just the very fact of co-production, the very fact of introducing the diversity, means that the whole way that we go about looking at information, thinking about it, processing, is done in a radically different way. And when we think about the future of the health and care system, and what we need to do, where it needs to go, we need that. Actually, that different processing, I think, is transformational, and we saw that time and time again today. So my word is diversity (brackets the new). So finally, well, nearly finally, because we're going to everybody that's taking part. But so nearly finally, we have Alison, and Alison's word is integration. So Alison, why did you choose that word?
That looks just like me with a headscarf on there. That's it, like a Russian babushka. I love it. Gosh, I'm really proud of everyone today, and my word is integration, because it's actually felt to me like it's way beyond involvement as we know and love it, which is generally speaking, professionals have an event and bring in people at a later date. But but none of that seems to have mattered in that it's felt like a really kind of a unifying experience, and we need that these days because the NHS, society in general, particularly this year, has been about change that has been more than disruptive and more like some of it destructive. And it's been very divisive. There's been a lot of them and us, and there's a lot of fear around in general. Then people tend to go into their own bunkers and very rarely, feel they have the courage to come out of them. So you can have too much change that is about like recreating something completely new. It's more like that Marcel Proust said, it's not about creating new landscapes, but it's about seeing with different eyes. And that's what this has felt like for me. It hasn't mattered whether the people speaking have been a social housing resident, a volunteer, from which age group, frontline staff, senior leaders. It hasn't mattered. There's been certain threads that have run right through the whole thing, that we each have a vital part of the picture. And unless we actually bring those different parts together, we can only ever be partially sighted. And if we need this kind of unifying experience to happen far more often for all of us. And that's why I was so delighted that we got this license from Stanford, and that the Tier 4 license, the header for that is integration. So I sort of nicked Stanford's words, but I wanted really to add my personal thanks. They've been incredibly supportive of our efforts here and are very, very willing to work with us in future on other things. So just thank you so much to everybody for being so positive, and that to be able to find that positivity these days when it's in short supply is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Alison, and I really love the fact that I chose a diversity word, in a sense a divergent word, and then you chose integration, which is a convergent word, and I just think, that it's the combination of both, really. So let's go into our absolute final activity. So what we'd like you to do is to come up with your word. So what we might, the people that are feeling really brave, we'd like you to write it on this whiteboard. And again, if you look on the left-hand side, you can see a little pencil. Underneath Quick Start, there's a little pencil. If you click on that, and if you look 2 symbols down, there's a capital A and a lowercase a, okay? And if you click on that, and then you'll be able to write on the board. Okay, so I'm going to put my word on there. Okay, so yeah, and I chose diversity, but some of you are doing it with pen, and that's great as well. Anything goes. Okay, and some of you might want to put it in the chat box. Yeah, that's great. Lynn hasn't got a pencil, but her word's inclusive, and that's great. And no, this is really wonderful. And then if you want to tweet it, that's great as well. And the last thing we'll do is we'll just hear back from our Twitter monitor, who is Rosanna, and our chat monitor, who I think is Lee. And we'll hear from them shortly. Okay, Dominique's given us appreciative. That's lovely, and she's going to tweet it. Oh, and we just heard from Christine, who was with us earlier. She's just got back to Manchester. So we've got relationships together, inclusive. These are great words. So do carry on putting them there, but we'll just hear back. So Rosanna, can you hear me? Can we unmute you?
Hi.
Hi. What's been happening on Twitter?
well, I'm Voluntary Chat, but...
you're monitoring chat, sorry. Yeah, go on. Tell us about chat then. Yeah.
Well, we've had a few words put into the chat section. We've got together, relationships, inclusive has come a few times, and appreciative as well.
Yeah. Great, thanks. And what are we hearing on Twitter?
She's on her way, she's on her way.
Yeah. Okay, I'm really good at this writing now, actually, on the chart while we're just doing this, so that's really good. I love, by the way, we put hashtag Get Lynn a Care Plan. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I love it. Yay.
This is general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you there? Are you there with us, Lee? Are you doing the chat? Yeah, right. Tell us about Twitter.
There's been amazing chat going on. People have really been loving how it's all about integration and working together. There's just a tweet come up saying no more silos. And
yeah.
I've really been loving hearing about the stories of genuine co-production and thinking differently. They've been loving things about together, design, share and plan. It's very authentic and reciprocity. Things like Coventry Mind the Gap. People have been saying how much they enjoyed it and how much they gained from it, the resources as well. They've had lots and lots of learning, which has been really beneficial for people. Just going through the tweets, there's so many, which is fantastic to see how many people are involved in the People's Transformathon today. I think one of the key things that's been coming through is about identity, that it's not us and them, it's not patients and health care professionals or other sorts of professionals as distinct groups of different groups of human beings. Everyone is a human being, and it's about breaking down those barriers and seeing each other as people, and working together because we're all working together for the same goal, really. As Ali was saying, it's seeing things with fresh eyes, getting away from those bunkers, and approaching things from understanding that everyone wants the same thing ultimately. People have really been inspired by that, I think. It's a fabulous...
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. And again, just everything, in the spirit of everyone included. And we've got a new hashtag now. We've not only got Get Lynn a Care Plan, we've actually got one from Lynn, which is Get Me a Care Plan. That's really wonderful. So, that brings us to the end of the People's Transformathon, and I just think, just going right the way back to the beginning, really, when a group of patient leaders, patient activists, whatever you want to call them, had this idea, and a passionate little group of people made this happen. And the thing about this, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people engaged in this today. We'll work the data through, but the engagement levels have been really high, and the whole thing has been done at hardly any cost. Yeah. Everybody's given their time for free. Stanford gave us the license for free, which was amazing. And I just think, it goes to show what can happen when you get a group of people, who are dedicated, who are diverse but integrated, and who are inspired, can make stuff happen. And I hope, that this is the start of something much bigger. I think lots been learned today. And, just to absolutely thank everybody that's taken part, everybody that's taken part in one of the sessions. Those of you that have, been a participant either for 20 minutes or 8 hours, it's just been fantastic doing this today.
The backstage people have been fantastic. They've,
I want to say thank you to everybody.
Absolutely everybody.
I just feel really proud that it's such a team effort, that we've all, even from designing the event, everybody's been involved in co-production, and our team outside have helped us, but it's been done at such little cost, but because people really care about it, and they feel a shared sense of purpose. And the fact that people have listened for the whole people transform one blows me away, really.
One of them's probably my dad, you do realise that?
I do, so my dad might well be my mum as well.
Yeah, but I think, doesn't it show the power of co-production? Doesn't it show that when you bring this diverse group of people together with a common purpose, that we can really make magic happen? And I think there's such precedent here for the health and care system. So I think that's a great place for us to end. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, absolutely everybody, and everybody's included, everybody's thanked, and watch this space. So thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.